Real Frank.
Hello, welcome to Real Frank Movie Reviews. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the movie Dune. Paul, a brilliant and gifted young man, born into a great destiny beyond his understanding, must travel to the most dangerous planet in the universe to ensure the future of his family and his people. As forces explode into conflict over the planet's supply of the most precious resource in existence, only those who can conquer their own fear will survive. Oh yeah, survival. That's what we're talking about with this little piece of work. My special guest reviewer for this episode is Kevin. Welcome back to the show, Kevin.
Thank you, Frank. I'm so excited to be back.
Yeah, thanks for coming back on. You did such a great job with our previous. I was like, you're the perfect one for this world of Dune.
Okay.
Dune. So have you ever read the Dune book?
No, I haven't. I watched the old 1984 movie back in the day, right? And I think that's my only experience with Dune before coming into this movie. So it was weird watching the movie, and I would pick up bits and pieces from that movie. I said, they have something similar. The scene is similar to that. The scene is similar to that. I mean, obviously both from the same source, right? I don't know what your experience with Dune is.
So my experience with Dune was zero. This was my first experience of Dune. I thought about watching the original one with, I think, Sting's in it. And I was like...
Yeah, he's like the... yes, he has quite the presence with his bikini briefs as he appears. Yes,
Sting was showing his little stinger? Oh.
Yes, exactly.
So compared to this one, what role did Sting play?
His character is aiming in this movie,
He's
right?
not.
So you got it. So there's a lot. I mean, in that movie, they compressed everything into one, right? So there's more storyline that was in there that just was cut off from this part, right?
So they revamped it a little bit from the original?
No. I guess a minor spoiler. We can talk about this at the ending, but you're not getting the full story in this movie.
Okay,
right.
That's good to hear. That's interesting because I thought it was a little different than my expectations from the previews and everything, and I know there's a big Dune fan base with this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I don't know. I mean, overall, you remember parts of the first one versus this new one. Did you enjoy this version of it?
It's a better movie overall, right? 10 times better. So this movie obviously has better technology in it. The way it looks is a lot better than it was coming from 1984. The actors are so much better in this movie. I don't think you can really compare them. It was like the other one was so old ago, and the technology that they used in that movie was so different from what it is. This is by far a better movie, right? I think if you go back and watch the old one, it's just a campier version of the story, right?
So maybe I'm going to do that after we do this. When I put this out, I'll go back and look at the old one. I thought about watching the old one first.
No, I think for you as someone who has no exposure to Dune, I'm not saying I'm an expert in Dune myself, right? You're better off just jumping into this movie. It's a better, well-made movie overall, right? Like if you go back to the old one, it's such an 80s movie, like the way it's shot and the way it's campy. You know how sci-fi back in the 80s was, some of it was campy.
Yeah.
That's what I remember watching the old one. I haven't seen that movie in probably a long time.
Did it have one of those music montages that they used to have in those 80s movies?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know it verbatim, but no, it's just, this is by far a much better movie. So.
All right. So let's talk about this movie. The story, since you've liked the story better, you said it's a little different from the first one. Did you enjoy this version of the story? Just the story part.
So what I liked about this was I think this movie did a really good job world building, right? I liked how it took its time to introduce you to the characters, introduce you to the different worlds, right? Introduce you to the politics. I think the old movie did a lot of talking and not showing. This movie did a lot of showing, right? I mean, you weren't like given a big dump of data information at once. Yeah, I think they did a good job of slowly layering in the stuff, so you knew who the villains were, you knew who the good guys were, and you were introduced to what kind of technology was in this world, and it was just a lot of showing it to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if how you felt about the world building in this movie.
It's a great question, Kevin. It was kind of slow. I mean, it was slow. All right, so his little, you can see he's got these visions, right? And they kept going to these visions and back and forth and visions. Oh my God, visions back and forth. It's slow. I was losing my mind. I kept checking my watch. This movie was about 2 hours and 35 minutes. It felt like it was 4 hours long for me because I know what's going on here, right? We know we're building up to this Dune world eventually here, right? This was the big setup movie for it, and the way the movie ended, because there's not really any real answers. You got a little answer, I feel, about those visions and stuff, and that's really it. But you can see the big wide opening for this world that's going to be released upon us in the near future.
Yes, all valid points, and I could see where you say it's slow, but in me, the way I was watching it, I was just digging into the characters and the way they were talking and interacting with each other, which really made the movie for me, I think. So for me, it wasn't slow. Mm-hmm. To me, it was interesting, right? So how they were setting up the politics of the movie, why House Atreides was being sent to Arrakis, right? How they got betrayed. So that I found was very interesting, and kept me going through the slower parts, right? Because you'd have slow parts, then you'd have a couple action set pieces, then you'd have a lot of talking after that, right?
Yes.
It was quite a while till you got to the big battle scene, which was towards the end, right?
Towards the end. You were working towards the end. And then you had to deal with those visions. They were constant, like, woo, 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 woo.
Yes. That's Dune, right?
What's wrong? I have another vision. I have these dreams.
Well, what do you think about the actors, right? Especially the main actor who played Paul.
Yeah. I mean, the acting was fantastic. It was... No doubt the acting was really good. It's an all-star cast. I mean, the cast is big names galore in it, right? So the acting was great. The most shocking thing to me that I really enjoyed was seeing Aquaman without a beard.
That was... I had to do a double take. That is a good observation because I was looking at it. That's Aquaman. He doesn't look like Aquaman. Right?
Aquaman with no beard? I can't tell you the last time I've seen him without a beard. I mean, you're so used to seeing him.
Did you notice, too, like when he came back from the planet, he had his beard back. The next time he came in, he had no beard.
He had no beard. So. You're right. I'm glad you pointed that out because I was going to mention that. But yeah, the beard was gone. The beard was there. Don, do you think that he really shaved it or it was digitally removed?
I think he shaved it. It looked smaller in this movie too, right? So
yeah,
he didn't look as intimidating without the beard. He didn't look as big, right? So.
A fun fact here, he was the only other time I've seen him without a beard was I saw a photo of him on Baywatch Hawaii.
Oh, really? That's fun.
When he was a kid. I saw it. I was like, oh. But yes, I was shocked. That was probably the most shocking moment for me. Aquaman with no beard. I had no idea. No idea what was underneath that beard.
Yes. So, 100% agree. That was a shocking moment, especially his first scene when he came in and it is, oh yeah, that's Aquaman. He doesn't have a beard, right? So. And
it's funny because, when some people shave their facial hair off, you don't notice right away. You're like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, you just notice with him.
Oh, I thought it was instant. Like, oh. Now maybe he'll cut his hair someday. I don't know.
maybe. So
The kid,
anyway,
that kid did a great job acting. He was.
no, I want to throw this movie out there. I know. So this kid, I first noticed him. There's a Netflix movie called The King, right? Saw that movie, loved that movie, and his performance is very similar to The King. So I think if you liked his performance in here, you should definitely watch The King.
So a lot of performers like this.
Not so much for the dreaming, but yes, it's just his performance reminded me of his other movie that I saw recently, right? So
Yeah. So and his dad too. He did a great job acting. What's his name? Oscar.
What's his name from Star Wars?
Yeah. Right. He's. I was watching this movie. It was called 10-Year Reunion. I think is the name of it. And it was on HBO. I was just flicking through, and there's a scene in this movie where there's Channing Tatum, or how do you say his name?
Yep.
Sitting next to him, Oscar, and in the back seat you got Chris Pratt, and then Anthony McAfee. I can't.
Oh yeah. Falcon, right?
Yes,
So.
yes. And in the back seat, I'm like, and this movie was in 2011, right? And then who knew all these guys would be superstars 10 years later?
Right.
I mean,
Now,
superstars.
he can handle a beard. He had quite the impressive beard in this movie.
That was
right?
a beautiful beard. I had
It was.
beard envy with that particular beard.
Yes.
It was gorgeous.
Yes.
The villain. What'd you think of this villain guy?
Well, so you have so you had Bautista. Is that how you say his last name?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
He's a physical presence. So
Yes, he is.
whenever he didn't have a lot of screen time, but every time he was on the screen, he made his presence felt, right? But really, I think the villain that stood out was the Baron.
Yeah.
They did a really good job with him, and I was giving vibes from Apocalypse Now from Marlon Brando. Do you remember that scene when you first see him? He's in the dark, almost like, and then he was rubbing his forehead.
Yes.
Does that stick out? That to me just felt like Apocalypse Now right there.
It probably took a little from that, maybe, because
I think so.
Could have been a shout out to it. The technology looked pretty cool too. Those helicopters, I like those helicopters. They had 3-4 wings on them. Then they folded down. That was cool. I like that part of it. And it's interesting that the real value here is that spice that everybody wants for their.
Yep.
That's interesting type. Not reading the book or being from the Dune world, that's an interesting storyline there, as far as the most valuable thing being the spice.
So, like always, after I see a movie that I like, I started to go down YouTube rabbit holes. What I didn't realize in the Dune universe is there's a reason why there's no computers. You notice there's no computers.
Oh.
There's no when people fly stuff, they're flying it manually. So I guess in this universe there was an AI that took over the universe, and there was a human revolt, and then there's no computers or robots or any of that kind of technology after the fact. So you did notice those two peoples, right? The one that was for Atreides and the other one that worked for the bad guys. Like they're, especially the only scene that sticks out is, you remember when the eyes went in the back of his head when he was looking up information?
Yes.
So that is this world's version of a computer. Basically, have humans that can store all this knowledge, right, or make big calculations. So
that's interesting.
But again, that's showing, not telling. That's what I like about this movie, right?
Right.
So,
what did you think about the mother in this movie?
She was a standout character for me, right? I mean, Rebecca Ferguson, I've seen her in the Mission Impossible stuff, but in here I was very impressed with, especially the way she interacted with her son, right? So
I found that relationship between her and her son a little creepy. I'm not gonna lie.
I can see that, yes.
Especially
there's not that big of an age. I mean, in real life, there's not that big of an age gap between them either. Right?
But that scene where they're out in the desert and they're changing their clothes into the water and they kind of look at each other.
Oh, yes.
They're like, what's going on there, mommy?
Yes, that was a little weird, that scene. I know which one you're talking about, right? So
Yeah, like why was that in
the way
there?
she looks at him without a shirt, then she turns around.
Yes,
Right? So,
yes, that's your son. What's that about? Why was that put in there?
yeah, that's weird.
All right, at least I'm not crazy. And what did you think about the CGI and the cinematography with this?
That, the director. I mean, I always like that director because his movies are very, very pretty to look at. The way he structures stuff. I would think this is one of the better looking movies I've seen in a while. Right. What did you watch it on, by the way?
I watched it on a projector.
Okay. How's your HDR on your projector? There's probably no HDR, right?
No, it was good. I have HDR, yeah.
Okay. So I have an OLED TV downstairs, and like there were some spots where it was just like when the sun would come over a dune or these big explosions. I was watching in a dark room too. It's like it would blind me for like half a second, right?
Yeah.
So, and I like the scale of everything too. The way he did the way everything was structured, so you would have a person inside, so you could see the scale of everything, right? Especially like during the battle scene or when you're just looking at the world itself, the way he used scale. And the set pieces he set up were too really good, right? I'm thinking the one that stands out was the spice machine they had to go rescue the people out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And another set piece was when he had to put his hand in the box, right? So even though there was a lot of talking and a lot of setting up of the world, I think you put enough set pieces in there and make it exciting as you're watching it. So
I agree.
At least for me, right? So
I agree half of what you're saying. Like,
yeah.
my thing was just that this was too long. Just condense it a little bit for me. That's all it was for me. Is it's too long, too drawn out.
Dude, you would make all the Dune people mad, right? If you start cutting stuff out, you'd just make.
I know. I'm not a Dune guy. I'm being honest. I just watched the Dune movie. I always thought it was an interesting movie. I'm not a Dune person, so don't take my opinion, personally. Just my opinion. That's it. Some Dune novice person here. But
right.
The way he filmed it with the certain tone of the picture, like had like the coloring of it had like what would you call that, like lighting? It was like a gray kind of, or
no, every world looked different, which
yes,
is cool,
exactly.
Right?
That was interesting. I really enjoyed that part of it. But I don't know if I'm becoming a CGI snob or something here, but the consistency, like when they get to that planet and they're looking at that massive structure they're staying at, some scenes it looked great and detailed, and then some farther scenes it looked awful. Like I don't know what happened there. I don't know if I'm just being super picky.
How big is your screen on your projector? How big is it?
150.
See, that's your problem. You got too big a screen.
Is that what it is? I'm seeing too many details?
Yeah, I was watching on a smaller 65-inch, so I wasn't noticing stuff like that. But then I wasn't, like, trying to nothing was sticking out to nitpick me. But I could... But, yeah. If I watch it again, I'll have to look at... Especially when they went into the city stuff. I agree some of the CGI was weird. Do you remember... When there was Many Dreams, they were doing this battle where they're flipping around and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was in this armor, and then his visor came up, and you saw his face with the blue eyes.
Yes.
That looked a little fake to me.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So.
And there were some scenes where they showed the sand, like out in the desert. It looked very detailed, grainy, and then other things, it just looked like I have a blurry television. Like,
yeah,
60 versus 120 megahertz refresh rate on your TV. It just didn't look right. It didn't. Where'd that detail go? That's my issue with that CGI.
That's CGI for you, right? So yeah.
I just wanted the consistency on that. Yeah, I don't know. My other big kahuna with this was some of the fight scenes looked very choreographed. Now, we all know fight scenes are choreographed, right? There's no tricks around that, and they look great. But there's one fight scene in particular where the bad guys group is there, and the way they're fighting, it just totally looked like a dance.
Oh,
than a fight scene. The way, because it was just so perfectly, it didn't look natural, like a natural fight. It just looked a choreographed fight or choreographed battle. That took me right out of it, because I never noticed that before in any recent memory of a movie I saw where it was that noticeable, that it was this smooth movement. It wasn't like, you're in a fight, you're using muscle and tension. And it's like, la, 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 knife here, hold this guy's here, another knife here. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, I can see that, right? I mean, when I was watching it, I was being that critical watching it. I was just taking it as it was going. But yeah, you're right. And I don't know if it had to do with, because the combat was weird, because you had the shields, right? And then to penetrate the shield, you had to go slow to it and stuff. So, but even when he was killing people to the shield, it wasn't felt like he was going that slow, right? So,
and I did like the idea of the shield as a protector, like you wore that thing. I thought that was a brilliant, kind of cool twist in there about how they protected themselves.
Right.
So, all right, so let's start rating this thing. What would you rate the story?
That's a good question. I really enjoyed it. And then I'm going to say it's an incomplete story, right? So, based on that, I'll probably say a 7. So I think it was more world building than anything else, setting up any possible sequels, right?
So I guess you really truly can't judge this story. I mean, obviously you can judge the story for this movie, but this is going to be into a intro into a bigger world, so it's going to tie in.
Yeah, it's basically half the book, and I think even if you're watching it, it says Dune Part 1, right? So
right.
I don't know if you noticed that during the title sequence.
I did Part 1, and I thought, well, maybe they're going to do like some movies do the chapters throughout the movie, like. But no, when the movie was over, it's like, okay, they've made it pretty specific that this is going to continue in another movie. So over and under, how many movies do you think they make with this?
Oh wow, I think they do a sequel to this. That'll be Part 2. I don't know. In this world of COVID, I just don't know like what they determine as success, right? I like to. Hopefully it does well enough to get a sequel, but I have no idea. At least 2.
I say 3 because I just read the numbers. They already got 40 million on opening weekend.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
So.
And that's with them being streaming too. People being able to stream it, and then versus the movie theater, they still got 40 million from the theaters.
Right. That's pretty good.
I say 3 movies at least.
At least. So.
For this story, I give it a 5.1. It just was drawn out for me for my taste. Again, this is just my taste. 5.1 because the story, I did see some where they're setting it up and why they had to do it this way. Just kept checking my watch. I was getting bored at some spots. I just wanted to move along a little faster. What about the acting? What would you rate the acting?
Was it you that said? I think it's hard to do wrong. Like they had like an all-star cast, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a bad performance in any of the actors. So I would say probably for this, we'll do an 8.5.
8.5. So. Wow. 8.5. All right. For this one, I give the acting a 7.1. I thought it was pretty solid.
Yeah.
Pretty solid, without a doubt. So cinematography. How would you rate the cinematography?
I think this is one of the better looking movies I've seen in a while. I was mentioning the scope of the movie was impressive to me. The way when you look at a landscape, you would see a lot of landscape, and you use scale very well too, right? If you had something big, you would make sure you would know how big it was. Mm-hmm. So, and plus I'm a fan. I mean, I love this director's movies where he shoots movies. So I'm gonna be biased here, and I'll give him a 9.
Whoa,
so,
a 9!
Yeah, so it's like a hometown score. So,
woo, 9! That's a first 9 on this show.
Yes,
9. I did enjoy the cinematography, but my issues were since you're kind of using cinematography and CGI in a lot of the scenes.
Yeah.
My issue was the inconsistency with the CGI kind of hurt the cinematography in my view because they'd pull out in some scenes. Some scenes look good close. I'm like, oh, that's awesome and beautiful. Then they would pull out in some scenes and it look awful to me. Like
that's your projector. That's your issue.
That's my issue. So next time I should watch it on something else.
Yes, watch it on iPad or something.
Maybe I'll watch it
World
again
Series
on a TV or go to the movie theater and watch it. But because of that reason, I had to score a little lower than you, 5.7.
I'll admit my Dine was very biased review score, right? So.
This director, what other movie did he do that you really enjoyed?
Wow, you're gonna put me on the spot. He did Arrival. I don't know if you saw that and you liked that movie.
I never saw it, but I'll add it to my list to check out.
Here, I had to cheat. Give me a second here.
That's all right. We can come back to it later. It's no big deal.
No, he did it. I mean, everything he does is just
all right, no problem.
Impressive.
You're just a fan. That's cool. That's all right, man. I'm a fan of a couple like that. All right, so CGI. What would you give the CGI?
I was gonna give it high, but you sort of.
Sorry.
We'll go with all the problems you mentioned. We'll go probably a 6.
All right, a 6. And that's where I'm at. I gave it a 6 for the CGI. I mean, they made some well attempts. There was some of the stuff that they did well was really well, but some of that stuff were kind of tied into the cinematography. Zoom in, zoom out, some thoughts kind of hurt it a little.
Okay.
So overall, what would you give this movie?
I liked it a lot, so we'll do an 8, right? I would definitely watch this movie again. I do think it's incomplete, and you got to right to the second half, but it made me excited to see the sequel and see it as a complete version, right? So I'll go a little high on that. So
8. All right. Overall, what were you gonna say before I interrupted you? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. So here's some of the movies that he did. So he did Blade Runner 2049. I don't know if you saw that movie.
I love that movie. That was an awesome, stunning viewing movie. I mean,
yeah. So he did Arrival and then he Sicario. Did you ever see Sicario?
Yes. Oh, that's a fantastic movie too.
So I know when he puts out a movie, it's going to be a visual treat, right? It's going to do a lot of interesting stuff with the camera and the way he sets up shots and stuff like that. So
those are 2 fantastic movies. The one thing I do want to point out too that I noticed, the music score. The music score in this movie was really good.
It was, yes.
It added to the suspense of some of the scenes in the movie, but I don't know if you saw Man of Steel and listened to that score. It sounded kind of similar to that score.
I have to go back. I mean, Man of Steel score is one of my favorites, right? I mean, so yes, I'll make a mental note at some point to go back and compare the two. So it
sounded so similar that I took a note to look at who did the score.
It's
and
the same dude.
It's right? Hans, right? So Hans, one of the best music score guy. And I was like, Hans, come on. I mean, we getting towards the end of our career there a little bit because you're an amazing, composer. But it sounded like they took some pieces from that Man of Steel and incorporated it into that.
Could be. So,
all right. So overall, you give it an 8. Overall, I give it a 4.7.
That hurts me. Hey, can we spend a few minutes? I want to get your take on, as someone who has no experience with Dune,
yes, and
you're coming into it fresh,
yes,
what you thought of the ending itself, right? Because it's not really an ending. It's
it's not an ending.
So
it's almost like it's not an ending, but it's just. It's the best way to describe it is like the end of Back to the Future 2 going into Back to the Future 3 where they made the movies back to back. Like, they left it kind of open-ended, right?
Yeah, they don't, yeah. So.
There's no, like, true ending. I mean, the only ending is you see the ending of his premonition. His premonition. That's the ending you really get for this movie. But as far as an answer to everything that was written or told to us through that movie, nothing really from that perspective. Like, there's still open.
Did that kill the experience for you? Think like you walk out of this, you don't know what's going to happen next. It's like you're basically at one point in this journey, you're not seeing the whole journey, right?
Right. I mean, I don't know. Again, it was more of the acting, the storytelling was fine. It was just the drawn out. I needed a more faster pace, and then the ending. To be honest, when I was I was checking where I'm at in the movie because I was getting kind of bored. And when I saw where we're at in the movie and then how much time was left, I was like, oh, there's not going to, if they wrap this up, it's going to be real bad. Like, this will be an awful ending. So obviously they got to leave some sort of open ending here because there's not enough time to wrap this thing up. So I kind of cheated with that. So I kind of had the expectation, because the way the movie was going, that it was kind of going to be open-ended and we just get the end to that.
Yes. So no, I think it's worth saying, right? So
yes.
I think it's one of the better sci-fi movies I've seen in a while. Even though for you it was a little slow pace, I walked away happy watching it, right? So,
and I'm sure most of the Dune fans or the book and stuff will probably enjoy this. And again, don't take it personally. I'm not a Dune guy, but I'm just a movie guy. All right, so I apologize. Again, this is my opinion. I would love to hear your opinion. Please tell me your opinion in the comments sections, things you liked, what you didn't like. If you're a big Dune fan, I would love to read them. All right, so for our review, Kevin gives it an 8. I give it a 4.7. That's our review for Dune. Thanks for watching.